It's about time.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Quick Cast episode 14. My name is Jeremy Paul, aka Sleepy Juice, and this is StarCraft 2, so let's get into it. Today we'll be looking at a Masters level game between our hero, Narok, and our Zerg player, Hero. Now, I do not believe this is actually Hero playing off racing. I do believe this is just a random Master Zerg player that's under that name. Now, we will be playing on Whirlwind. Whirlwind is a fun map where we have two bases to choose from for the third base. We do have this natural here with this giant ramp, then it'll come out, and most people will pick this for their third. It's down and a little bit to the way. We do have some aggressive players that will go the other direction, but the safe third will lead into a fourth that's further away. Now, again, this map has very large ramps, two viable third positions, one watchtower right in the center, which gives great vision of everything in the middle, and of course it's a 4-player map, so they can spawn in any one of the corners at this point, which means that we have to do some sort of quick scout to find where that other player is, especially in the case of Protoss. Now we're going to see when he sends his scout out here, as he is going to go for a gateway first. Now, this is a large map, so it's a fairly decent map to do a gateway first. So you do have to be aware that the ramp is very large and hard to wall off, which is when he's going down there. And we'll see which direction he's going to go scouting, and it looks like he's going to go, well, this map, unfortunately, you have to go to the middle to get anywhere. We do have the drone coming out also at this point, and he looks like he's going to be going for a hatch first. The probe, on the other hand, has now hit the center point, and it looks like he's going to be going the wrong direction, so he's going to actually scout the Zerg player last. Now, it is possible to get a feel for where that Zerg player is due to when the Overlord comes in. We do see that the third positions for the Zerg player, like we were talking about on the other end, he does have those two. He'll usually go to this one because it allows him to have reinforcements closer to the battle. A little bit more aggressive build will go that way. Some passive build will take the other one first, but usually the other one is taken as a fourth base. Now, we do see the Cyber Core coming down for the Protoss player. The Protoss player is going to want to go to a Mothership Core as soon as possible. So, and basically just for defense. Mothership Core can shoot down. Nothing on the Zerg Arsenal can shoot up at the beginning of the game besides Queens, and they're not going to get to your base. Now, we do have the third base going down for the Zerg player. He's going to be very economic here. It is a slight risk when you're playing against a Protoss player that is going for a gateway first build. They're going to be able to put on a lot of pressure with that Mothership Core in their first warp-ins when warp gates finish. And we'll see how that goes. We do see that he canceled, our Protoss hero, Narok, canceled that third pylon and ended up placing it down at the wall there. He's going to start making his wall off so he can move out to get the natural also. Now, we do see that he saw this Overlord come in and still scouted that bottom right position. He could have, right when he saw it, which he was right in about the center, he could have actually gone straight up to the top right. He should have been known by that point in time where the Zerg player was, and those are just little kind of tips that the Zerg player will give you that you need to read. It's not something, it's just the angle he's coming in at. Now, we do see that both the pool and the gas are going down, so we will be getting some speedlings out shortly. Now, for those of you who've watched Quick Cast before, as we're going into the mid-game here, we try to focus on one concept a game for lower league players while we cast the game, and that way those players can take that and they can put it into use in their games. And being a master level game, we're going to see a lot of more complicated things. We're going to see actually really strong build orders. We're seeing a hatch first, and then we're going to go into looks like a gateway first, into a nexus, into more gateways at the front. He should, if he's doing 3 gateways here, he'll be able to do a lot of pressure. If he's doing just 2, he'll be able to at least get a decent amount of pressure off, but still be economical. So it looks like he's going to go for 3 gateways at this point. But the concept for today is what we want to cover is we want to talk about counterattacking. Now, normally counterattacking is a Zerg's forte. That's what they do. We can see that right now the Protoss player is not aware of that third base. He didn't get a catch on that with his probe. Now, normally counterattacking is very Zerg orientated. They have a lot of speedlings, they have roaches, they have drops on certain things, they have mutas, which are huge. These things are very fast. They can get into your base, and when your army's not in position, they can punish you for it. Now, we don't see Protoss very often go with the counterattack play. Usually the Protoss player is going to be going for the death ball. Very large army. It's going to usually end up involving Colossi and Void Ray in this matchup, and other matchups that would be different. We do have the Protoss player now, though, placing a warp-in pylon, a forward pylon near where the third base is. That I'm assuming he thinks that's where the third base is. We checked a second ago, and he doesn't know where the third base is at, so he's going to assume it's getting away from his army and more towards the other direction. Now we do have a very large amount of speedlings coming up here, and they're going to poke in. He is going to lead with 2, which is very good because you don't want your entire army force fielded out. The force field comes down. He does catch a very few amount of those speedlings there, and a lot of them get away. Now those speedlings are not drones, so that's very good for the Protoss player because that Zerg player making those speedlings has lost all that larva to the ability to produce drones, and now has these speedlings, which are Narok actually has a really good army for countering. Zealots are good against speedlings. The sentries are great against speedlings, and the mothership core, of course, can't even be hit by them. It might take them a little while to kill them, but, you know, pushing out with the mothership core allows you to recall back. And it looks like he's going to be going in for a push here as his he's starting his robos. Warp gate's finished. He's got the forward pylon down, and he's going to try to push into what will be the future location of the 4th base. I think he actually believes that the 3rd base is there. We do have the Zerg player hero coming up with a flank, so he's going to move his lings back behind the army, sees the army moving into the other direction, and ends up pulling back, and he's going to end up going for... he's moving up to the front of the Protoss base, but I don't think he's actually going to go in at this point. He's going to need them back here to defend the natural, because the Protoss player is going to move into the natural here. The Roaches are already coming out, which is the best answer for against the Zealots here. But it doesn't look like they're going to get away, and great force fields there, catching all the Roaches, and the Roaches are stuck between the Zealots and the force fields there. Now, the true counter to Roaches is, in fact, force fields. Now we have the Lings coming in, and the Lings are getting force fielded out also. Those are great force fields. A great play there by Narok, pushing every single one of those Lings and Roaches away from the sentries and getting in there and doing all the damage he needs to. Now, Roaches are great against Zealots, and Speed Roaches are decent against Stalkers until you get into a large enough amount. The thing is that the sentries really hinder the Roaches. The Roaches just don't have the range. Now, the sentries are starting to go down here. There's only 1 Zealot left. He needs to get recall out of there. It doesn't look like he's going to have enough before these Roaches pop to actually kill that base. It's a good force field's holding it off for a little bit, but he really does need to recall out at that point. He's moving back away, and it's still getting shot down. Another sentry goes down, and the Zealot goes down, and finally he recalls out there. Should have recalled out a little bit earlier, I feel. But still, a good recall. Saved 3 of those 5 sentries, and really only lost the 2 sentries. The Zealots are refundable, basically. It's just minerals. Looks like, okay, so he actually had a little bit of trouble getting that recall off. You can see he moved away from the away from the hatchery. He was ready to recall out, and just it didn't go off for him. Maybe he wasn't clicking on the Nexus. A little bit of a hotkey problem. Now, we do see the damage was done there. We do have a probe lead for the Protoss player. He's good economically, and the Zerg player is still on 3 bases, which isn't great. It's not what we wanted, but we did enough to force out all these units, and these Roaches are now basically useless units. He has to find some way to use those Roaches. He was able to push in there and get a pull on that mothership core to waste the energy for that overcharge, which is good. We don't want... What that does is it keeps the Protoss player from being able to push out again. He can't recall because he used that energy on the overcharge. So now he's stuck in his base. And as we're seeing that, we're seeing the Zerg player expand. Okay, the Protoss player can't push out. He's stuck in his base. We're going to expand. We're going to get a macro hatch in the 3rd because we want those reinforcements close up to our opponent. And we're going to 4th back and away so we can get that extra gas we need to tech up. We do have the Protoss players pulling out of the base, and he's going to catch all of these Roaches. Again, great force fields. The counter to Roaches are force field, people. That's just amazing play right there, and he's able to take down all but a couple, and these 2 are just asking to die. They're going to get pulled back. Now, what we want to do at this time is, as we're seeing the army come here and push, is we want to know what can we do as a Protoss player to counterattack. What can we do to split this play up? Now, Hero, the real hero, Protoss player, which I don't think this person is just phenomenal at this. He's able to do Warp Prism harass and Forward Pylon harass and a lot of different things that way. We can see now as the economy's gearing up there, we have upgrades coming down, we have Colossi coming down, we have a lot of good things coming out here. But all of these things kind of lead to that macro death ball and not counter-attacking quick units. So where do we go? What do? We do have the forward pylon down in the bottom right-hand side of it, and we do have a Robo Bay, which we can do to get out. We have some pylons going right down in front of the 4th base. We'll see how this works out for him. The Zerg army is going to move in to take those out, and the Protoss army here, rather cleverly, is going to attempt to move in behind them and pen them up there. If he can catch them in this gap here, or even if he can catch them on the ramp up here in this area, let's see how this goes. So another great force field catches all those roaches in there, but he doesn't really have that many units compared to them out there. So he's going to drop a time warp and get out of there. Pull his army back. Was able to hopefully force more units if they hadn't fully macroed up yet, in which he has. He's forced a bunch of roaches. Roaches are a lot of supply in a unit that kind of gets not as effective very quickly. So that's very good for the Protoss player. Now we do have the Warp Prism finally coming out. So this is what's going to cause us to be able to do that counterattacking when that Zerg army moves out. And that's what we want. We do have Storm coming down. Now, Storm is becoming more popular in ZVP as Vipers have become more popular because feedback is just amazing against them. Feedback can kill a Viper in one shot, but the Storms will also help against things like Hydras and Lings and other units. Infestors also feedback is good. Now we do have the roaches coming up. They're going to try to make themselves useful. They're going to walk right into a choke point, and the Protoss player is going to push him back. But here we go. Great split by the Zerg player. He's going to come with a flank from the east and also from a flank from the south, and he's going to push up here, and this Protoss player is going to drop Time Warp. Some great force fields there, but he needs to pull back. All those sentries are getting picked off there. We do have a bunch of units stuck behind the force fields there. They're not going to get out. So half the Zerg army is able to push up here, and they're just going to get wiped out by the force fields. Meanwhile, the Protoss player is backed into his main, and the Zerg army is going to move into the 3rd. Now, this is a fairly good position because the Protoss army can pen the army there. So the Zerg army needs to get those out. Now, we do see at the same time, we do have the Warp Prism coming in, and that Warp Prism is going to warp in Zealots elements in the main. Now, the Zerg army is all over here at the 3rd here. So those Zealots are going to go in. The Zerg army is racing back. And the Zealots are going to go and focus fire the layer at this point. They're not even going to worry about the drones. They're just going to try to take down the layer. Meanwhile, we have Storm finishing up. The army's moving into position back at the 3rd. And these Zealots are going to be able to take out this layer before the army gets there. That Queen is just not going to do enough damage. The layer goes down along with all the tech on that. And now we have a Zerg player that's missing their layer. So he's going to instantly have to start upgrading his natural to be the layer at this point, which is a good call. It's unfortunate it happened, but that's a great play from the Protoss player. And still leaving that Observer there to be able to see when it comes back. So we see that perfect counterattack there. The army was out of the position. It was against the Protoss 3rd base. Couldn't get back in time. Just 6 Zealots were able to come in and completely destroy the layer tech for the Zerg player. And he has to start over again on his tech tree. That's basically exploiting a huge weakness of the Zerg player. Their tech is extremely vulnerable. If they go Spire, they lose that one Spire. That tech tree is completely destroyed. They have to rebuild it again. Now we have the Zerg army pushing in, but again, we have a great warp in down on the other end of the map for the counterattack. All the Colossi are pulled in, the Storms are going down, the Vipers did their job, all the High Templar actually die, except for 2 that are going to die at that point there. Now we do have the Zealots taking out that 4th base of the Zerg player. Meanwhile, the Zerg's forward army has to pull back to actually go get that Zealot warp in and kill it off. That saved the Protoss player just then. Narek probably would have died if that Zerg player would have been able to just forcefully push in there. His army is not nearly as large as what the Zerg army is at this point. In fact, it's about 30-40 supply lower. So that great counterattack, and he's going to find the warp and pylon here and take it out. But that great counterattack, not only did it do damage, it killed the Zerg's 4th base, but it actually saved the Protoss player. Now the Protoss player with a little bit of a mineral bank is going to throw down a 4th and a 5th base, also continue to work its way into a macro game. The Protoss player has enough workers. He's at 71. The Zerg player is now starving for gas. He's at 3 bases mining instead of 4. He's trying to go up to Viper Tech. He's going into his hive. He needs that gas. They need that gas. We still have another Warp Prism coming out because Narok's going to want to continue that harassment, continue that counterattack. Now you notice he's not just going in and throwing Zealots away. He's doing it specifically when the army is out of position. Both times the army has been at his front door, he's been able to warp in and take out a base for the Zerg player. Now the Zerg player is going to find this 4th base and come in here with just a little hit squad. Now The Zerg player splitting his army up, is because he keeps getting counterattacked. So this is another benefit of being able to do those counterattacks. And seeing that that entire Zerg base isn't, or the entire Zerg army isn't there, he's going to actually come in and kill all these roaches off before they actually get the Nexus down. Meanwhile, his front was open, but the Zerg player, being so worried about those counterattacks, didn't even attempt to push in. Now, it looks like we still have the High Templar and the Colossi here, but it looks like we actually left one roach alive on the in the fourth base here, so it's like it's going to be taken out by the probes. Probes get a roach kill there. That's excellent. And we lost a couple probes, but that's okay. We're going to be able to move on. Now we have 3 attack, though. We're going to start moving in for the kill. We still have this pylon here to warp in. We have a warp prism coming in on the north side of the map. We have good vision of the map to where the Zerg player can't sneak past us to get in there. Now we have to deal with the Vipers still. Now we have High Templar to deal with the Vipers. Feedback is going to be a great tool for just basically you pop the Vipers before they can get those abducts and get all those Colossi, and you do that, and then if you have any energy left, that's when you're going to use the storms. But at this point, he's able to move all the way into the 3rd base, and the Zerg army is not even responding. Finally, he moves out of the way, and here come the Vipers, but they're coming in at a horrible angle. He should be able to pop all those. Now, instead, he's going to go for storms on the roaches, and that's going to buy him time to kill off these 2 bases. And now he has a great choke at the top of that ramp where the Zerg army can't actually attack into it. So he's going to now, as the Zerg army retreats back to its natural, the Protoss player is going to reorganize and go into the natural there. He pulled his Colossi back to make it so he has room to get to those Vipers. Now he's going to storm. Instead of doing feedback, he storms all over there, and we were able to see he was able to abduct all 3 of those Colossi because he didn't actually feedback those Vipers, but the storms are going to do enough damage. After all the counterattacking, he's going to do enough damage, and even has a counterattack coming at the north of the base at this point to take care of anything that wants to come from the main, so his army can attack the natural, and his counterattack will actually do damage to the main. It's a great multi-prong attack from the Protoss player Narok here. I'm glad we went through this game, and it was good to find a really good example of counterattacking for this concept. So thank you to Narok for submitting this game to our Cast It. For everybody who doesn't know, that's a great place to start casting and get games. Okay, so what we just saw was a great game between Narok and Hero. Whether or not it was the real Hero off racing, not sure. There was obviously, we saw a lot of downfalls in that play, so it's hard for me to believe that. But at the same time, it was still a great master level play. We had both players playing it very fast, both players doing good micro with their units, being able to be in the right place at the right time, decent map placement of exposed, things like that. We saw very good, solid strategy. Now, what we do want to cover, though, and what I want all the lower league players to actually take from this, is that counter-attacking that Narok did in the game, that basically was able to take a game that was a very even match game and was able to push it into his favor. We saw him pre-plan with that Warp Prism. As soon as the Zerg army was out, he was able to jump to the Warp Prism, go in there with 6 Zealots, and take out the lair. We then saw him pre-plan with the Pylon on the south side of the base, and an engagement happened on the other side of the map. He was able to warp in those units and get up there and take out the Zerg's 4th base. We also saw at the very end of the game, as he was making that game-ending push, he still had a Warp Prism up to the north side of the base, warping in Zealots into that main to continue the harassment on that end. That picking and ripping apart that Zerg player works incredibly well, and normally it's the other way around. Normally the Protoss player likes to stick to one spot and defend, while the Zerg player counterattacks with its really quick units. Now, we didn't see that. We saw the Protoss player do it, very similar to how we see Hero, the real Hero Protoss player, play also. It was a very good game. I want to see those games from you guys where you guys take that concept and put it into use, so please email it to me. My email's down below in the description. Also, follow me on Facebook and Twitter, which are also down in the description. And like and subscribe to this video so I know I'm doing a good job, what I need to work on, and that you want to see more of it. So until that time, you guys go out, play games, and have fun.